All right, so next up, we're going to go to Iowa, and Skylar's going to talk to us about some exciting things in Iowa. So Skylar Knickerbocker is with Iowa State University. He is the co-director of the Reactor Lab, which is real-time analytics and transportation. He's also a research engineer, and he's been focusing on transportation operations, maintenance, and safety. You've also really been involved a lot in some of the important research with SHARP2, FHWA, Iowa DOT, and Midwest Transportation Center, leading some of that work. All right, so take it away, Scott.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm going to talk about some of the work we're doing to visualize safety data in Iowa, and for specifically for heavy trucks. And the real thing that we try to do is make safety data accessible. And it's part of kind of the whole open data thing, that if you make data accessible for the users, they can be more informed and make better decisions because they have access to that information. And so typically we get data in a lot of different formats. The normal, the kind of high level ones where you just get a single number that's really generic. You don't know a lot of the details behind it that are provided. We do get some fairly decent charts and maps showing the data, but the most common one, in at least the safety realm, is charts. And more charts and more charts and more charts and more charts and more charts. And actually there's 21 different tables in the pocket guide that the FMCSA has for the safety statistics. And Iowa State is definitely safety focused, and we're heavily guilty of doing a lot of these charts as well. And the problem with the charts is you can only see one variable at a time, typically maybe two or three if you are strategic in how you provide it. But crashes are unique, and there's tons of different contributing circumstances that lead to these crashes. And we are only reporting on a fraction of all the attributes that are actually being collected by the officers in the field, because we can only have so many charts or so many tables in our reports to report on, or we only have time to look at so many different variables. And in Iowa, each of our crashes have over 130 either coded or derived attributes. And as I mentioned, the problem with this is it's hard to understand those different relationships between the crash data because we're only typically looking at one or two variables at a time, and we just see the what's going on with that variable and don't understand all the different relationships that have occurred with all the other different coded attributes that we're collecting. So whenever we typically present these results, and especially when we started this project and some of the guys at the safety team started presenting the data to me, we'd get a table and reporting all the results, and you'd get all the what if question. Well, what if you only consider the fatal and major crashes? I don't want to look at all the crashes. I only just want to see what the results are for the fatal and major. Or what if you only look at the interstates? I'm not cared about the Iowa or the US routes. Show me the data specifically to that. Or what if you only look at my county? I just want to look at the specific county that I work in, and what's the data for that location. And it gets back to the safety data accessibility, because whenever we start asking those questions, it's always, well, I gotta go back to my office, I'll process the data, and I'll get you that report tomorrow, or get you a new updated table tomorrow, or in the next meeting that we'll have those that updated data. So it's a long, drawn-out process. And we were trying to resolve that whenever we started working with Iowa State Patrol and Motor Vehicle Enforcement, because they wanted to be more data-driven in how they did their enforcement activities. They have a mix-up grant where they get extra dollars to do extra enforcement that they split between both Iowa Motor Vehicle Enforcement and the Iowa State Patrol, and they came to us just wanting to mine the data and have easier accessibility to that information. Because at this point, whenever we started this about a year and a half ago, they were still using insights that they gained from a 2014 report and making decisions based on that 2014 report of where they targeted their enforcement or what actions they were targeting as part of their enforcement efforts. So we tried to improve that, and we created a data visualization tool to make the data interactive and user defined. So if they have questions, they can actually go to the tool and start asking those questions and not having to come to us every time to have us rearrange the data or reprocess the data to fit the questions that they have. The tool is all interactive and web-based. So they can come in here and select what they need to filter. They can go to the different tabs at the top and start going in and querying it all. It's all built in Tableau, and it gives them easy access to the information from their laptops that they have in the vehicles or in their offices. So there's a wide definition of heavy trucks, even within Iowa. Motor vehicle enforcement cared about all the different classes of trucks, whereas the Iowa DOT actually only considers, I think, class 11 and higher as heavy trucks. So we wanted to build the tools to be usable by not just the law enforcement audience, but also to the engineers within the Iowa DOT. So we added some filters initially to just give a high level view of here's what the different vehicle classes are that comes from the officers' reporting fields, and then allow them to choose which of those classes that they want to consider as heavy truck. We also provide the year filters, and then the law enforcement agencies that we're working with typically deal with the federal fiscal year, so they also asked us to add that in there. And then getting back to their areas, the captain's areas and the state patrol districts was also important to them, so that they could dig into just their area. They don't have to worry about filtering or saying all these counties are in my area. So we added some little things to just make it easier for them to use there as well. And then the other one that we added were these 3 little filters at the bottom. These are kind of just check boxes that they would always be applying, so we tried to just make it easier for them to use, because they always throw out the animal-related crashes, since there's not really any enforcement activity that they can do to try to prevent those crashes. We've filtered the major causes that gets derived to non-targeted major causes and targeted major causes. Again, getting back to that effort for them of being able to use this data to drive their decisions and where they have their enforcement activity. And then the last one is the no improper action by the heavy truck drivers. So it was actually surprising to us that there is such a higher percentage of crashes where the heavy truck doesn't have the improper action. I think it was closer to I think it was higher than 55%, which we were expecting that number to be lower. So that was another one of the filters that they wanted to do, is they're not trying to target those drivers that aren't leading to the causes. They're trying to do enforcement activities for the drivers that are causing the crashes. So that was another filter they used to remove those crashes. So we don't report all 130 plus variables that are coded. We tried to be subjective of what variables were critical for heavy trucks and for their enforcement activities. So we've got 9 different categories that we organize the data along the top, and it includes 30 plus of those variables that are included in there. So it's not just the 1 or 2 variables there, but you can query on any of those, and those filter across all the different pages. So a filter that you make on one page carries over to all the other pages. We also tried to be effective in the way we use tooltips. We can't show all the information in the graphics, so we tried to use tooltips to convey additional information. So as you're hovering over any of the boxes, you get that additional detail. And the 3 most common ones that we get are either a trend line showing you how it's trended over the past federal fiscal years, just some additional attributes specifically to individual crashes. And then the other one that we added was the severities, and they really use this county plot quite frequently. And the thing that we were noticing is that they would always go from the county plot back to the summary table to see what the percentage of crash severity crashes were in that area. So to make the user experience easier for them, we just ended up adding that plot directly to the tooltip. So as they're hovering over all the different counties, they get the crash severity breakdown in that tooltip. Crash data is also very hierarchical. So you have the crash level attributes that pertains to the entire crashes or to the entire crash, but then you start getting into the vehicle and person level details as well. So we again wanted to be strategic in how we represented that data, because even as an experienced user, it's often difficult to remember which of these attributes are vehicle level or crash level details. So to do this, we made sure that anything that was at the crash level was always in a square format, and then anything that's a vehicle or person level would be in the more circular or bubble charts. And then we always made sure that we tried to label it properly to really convey to the user that if the numbers that they're looking at in one chart don't equal another chart, it's probably because we're counting at a different level of the number of vehicles versus the number of crashes. The one other chart that they feel is really effective for them is to be able to see the interactions between the vehicles. So not just looking at what the vehicle action was for all the vehicles involved in the crash, but separating it out between the heavy trucks and then the non-heavy trucks. So what was the heavy truck doing, and then what were all the other vehicles that were involved in the crash doing? And this allows them to select, say, a turning left movement, and then see all the corresponding vehicle actions for the other vehicles involved in the crash, what they were doing, and so that they can understand this relationship between the vehicles and the non-heavy truck vehicles. And then I've mentioned it a couple times, but the ability to filter using any of the charts. So all the charts are interactive. So if you click any of the charts, it filters them, so you can start asking those user-specific questions that you have and digging into the details that are relevant to you. We did want to try to be consistent across all the different sheets, since you do have 9 different sheets of attributes and data. So to make sure that the user has some comfort that what they chose on one page is still carrying over to the next page, we always keep it consistent, where we report the total number of crashes and the crash location in the very top left corner, so they get that reassurance that the selections that they made have carried over to those next pages. So with this tool, we've really got away from the what if questions that we were getting, or at least we still get the what if questions, but we can answer it in real time with them. And it was really exciting the first time we actually presented this tool, that we started getting all these what if questions that they had that really they probably didn't think they could ever answer, that we could show them with the tool within a matter of seconds, the data that could either support what they were thinking, or to let them dig into it more at a later time. So just some questions that they're asking us, and it really has just led to more questions and more ways for them to use the tool, and to use the tool to answer the questions that they've got. So how is the tool used? Right now, the officers in the field use it to understand the crashes that are occurring in their area, so that they can use it for more targeted enforcement in the area. We also have a quarterly meeting with Motor Vehicle Enforcement, Iowa State Patrol, and Iowa State, and then I forgot to include FMCSA as well, where they identify at least the top 10 counties that they want to target their enforcement for the next quarter. So we're doing that using the tool. That's the first thing we do in the meeting, is spend the first 30 to 45 minutes reviewing reviewing the data from the tool and determining where we want to target our enforcement for the next quarter. And then the Motor Vehicle Enforcement just received an award last October for the Safety Enforcement Award, and they really attributed to having this tool to be able to be more targeted in their enforcement to winning this award. So I'll open it up to any questions. Yeah.
Hi, great presentation. I'm just curious, for your Tableau dashboard, did you experience, so it seems that it has a lot of data elements, and it seems that you are actually having officers using it in the field.
Yep.
Do you have any performance issues? Does it load pretty quickly? Does it load very quickly for
you? Yeah, it loads really quickly. I think the only other real issue that we have with loading is some of the images sometimes. But we're not talking a massive amount of data with this. I think it's like really only like 23,000 or 30,000 crashes. So it's really not the amount of data. We do, because we're dealing with the vehicle and crash level, we do have to do some replication of it.
Right.
But overall, we're not dealing with a massive data set with this tool. So we haven't noticed the performance issues.
Okay. Quick follow-ups, and is this available?
Yeah, it's publicly available. I can go to one of those slides that had the link at the bottom. Yeah, so it's right there at the bottom. But if you just search Reactor Iowa State University, it'll get you at least to our landing page to, and all of the tools that we develop are openly available on our website. Yeah.
Since the filters get applied across different tabs, is there ever any concern that like a user could forget that a filter is on, like they turn it on from another tab?
Yeah, it is a concern, and one of the requests that we have received from motor vehicle enforcement is to have like a summary sheet of here's everything that's been applied, because in the meeting we'll run into that confusion where you've done something on one sheet or somebody's done something on their laptop and they aren't seeing the same data. So it is an issue that we do have with the tool. So we're working on it. There's not a great way to do it in Tableau, but it is an issue with the tool.
Yeah, it's like a little sidebar.
Yep.
The first question, where is your data stored?
So the data, the raw data that gets collected for the crash data is all stored by the DOT, and then they send us an extract of that data on normally a weekly basis that we try to update. But then after that, it's just local on our servers, and then we publish it to Tableau Public is what we're using here. So the actual data would be in an extract on Tableau Public. And none of the crash data that we have is personally identifying. It's all data that would be publicly available, and actually is publicly available if you go to the Iowa DOT's ICAT tool.
And another question that I had was,
Good.
Another question.
Yeah.
You can hear that your customers have gone from what if questions to more detail. So, but they still are looking at one factor, right? Have they already come back to you with asking questions about multiple factors?
Multiple.
Factors, like what's going on this road during this time and this?
No, they haven't. They haven't come back with questions like that. Not at this point yet. They were just happy to get something where they could access the data easily. So we've overshot their expectations at this point, because again, it really just gets back to that data accessibility. There wasn't, and the reason they came to us was they were having trouble getting the data from the Office of Traffic and Safety, or not in a very good format that they can do anything with it. And we're talking about law enforcement officers that they don't have the staff and resources or time to do these sort of data analytics, to pull the data in, to even review. So they just wanted something quick and easy, no models, nothing too sophisticated on top of it. They just wanted the basics. They just wanted the data.
Can you talk a little bit about the different user communities? And you got law enforcement, you mentioned engineers, and you had a good list of how it's being used. Have you seen either how the different groups interact, or when you were looking at the user interface, how someone in the field, a law enforcement officer, might be using it differently, or looking for different ways to visualize than an engineer in an office?
We were just trying to keep it simple at this point, so we didn't go into those details, and it's really was for the law enforcement users, because the Iowa DOT, the engineers there have their own tools that they can use, and we develop other tools for them. So it's really targeted for them, but we tried to make it open and flexible, so if other people do want to use it, they could have that capability. Yep.
To expand on that question, is the application being used by FMCSA for anything that they're doing? Usually FMCSA is working with law enforcement.
Yep.
So are they using it, and how are they using it in conjunction with law enforcement?
So FMCSA is part of the quarterly meetings that we use to review the tool. I don't know how much they actually use it in reviewing the data. They at least sit in the meetings and review it. Iowa State Patrol and MVE are more proactive, where they prepare for the meeting and look through the data beforehand. So I'm not sure actual FMCSA's use, but it has been interesting looking at. So I've sat through some of the FMCS presentations where they talk about work zone is a really high crash probability, or crashes with heavy trucks in work zones is disproportionate. And actually, during that meeting, I opened up this tool and was quickly able to filter all the crashes to just the work zones, and we have a work zone chart and see that our data, I think, was like less than 5% of the crashes occur in work zones. So I don't know if we're just seeing less crashes in work zones compared to FMCSA, or where other states are more severe. I don't know what's going on there, but we were lower than what they were reporting as the national average.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.